They say aging takes your strength, your desire, and your connection. But what if I told you it's not age that's stealing your manhood, it's the herbs in your kitchen cabinet? Yes, the very herbs you've been told are healthy might be the reason you're waking up without drive, feeling disconnected from your partner, and watching your confidence quietly slip away. One of these herbs found in thousands of so-called wellness teas has been clinically shown to lower testosterone, restrict blood flow, and shut down intimacy in men over 60. And yet most seniors are using it every day without knowing the damage it's doing. I'm Dr. Moitkara for over 30 years. I've helped men in their 60s, 70s and beyond restore what aging and misinformation had slowly taken from them. Circulation energy and that deep feeling of masculine presence. And today I want to show you something most doctors never will, because here's the truth. Not all herbs are helpful. Some of them, including licorice root, peppermint sage, and St. John's wort, are silently working against your body's natural rhythm after 60. But there's good news. 4 herbs exist that do the exact opposite. They support testosterone, improve microcirculation, and bring warmth and responsiveness back where it counts most. Stay with me, because in just a moment I'll show you exactly what to remove, what to replace, and how men just like you are using these 4 natural tools to reclaim their strength, confidence, and connection. Starting today, before we begin. If you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss a health breakthrough that could change your life. And if this message speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 and tell me what you'd like to hear more about, because this channel is for you. Let's start with what most men never suspect, the hidden dangers. These are the 4 herbs you should never eat after 60. Yet they're quietly showing up in teas, tonics, and so-called health products. They may seem harmless, even helpful, but inside an aging male body, they do the exact opposite, shutting down circulation, lowering testosterone, and numbing the very spark that makes you feel alive. Let's take a closer look at what they are and why they must go. 1. Licorice root, the silent testosterone killer. Licorice root. I still remember the look on Robert's face, 66 years old, widowed for 5 years, and finally starting to feel ready for closeness again. He had met someone new, a woman who made him laugh, who made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. But behind his smile was worry. He said, "Doc, I just don't feel like myself. I want to connect, but my body's not responding." His energy was low. Mornings were dull, and intimacy felt more like a memory than a possibility. When I looked through his habits, nothing stood out until he mentioned the immune tea he drank every morning. He swore by. It said it helped him stay sharp and calm. I asked him to bring it in, and right there on the label, it was clear as day, licorice root front and centre. Now, let me be very honest with you. Licorice root isn't always bad. It has benefits in the right context for the right person, but for aging men, especially those over 60, it can be one of the most damaging herbs you unknowingly consume. Licorice root contains a compound called glycyrrhizin, which, while helpful in small doses for certain conditions, has a disturbing effect in older men. It suppresses testosterone and raises cortisol in simple terms. It raises stress hormones while lowering the very hormone that gives you drive, strength, confidence, and desire. The moment testosterone dips, everything changes, blood flow slows, motivation weakens, and that quiet spark that once burned in your chest begins to flicker. Most men don't know this. They think it's just age, or they blame their partner, or they blame themselves. But more often than not, it's the daily rituals like a cup of licorice-laced tea that are draining their masculinity. Drop by drop, when Robert stopped drinking it and began a simple hormone-supportive routine, everything changed within weeks. His energy returned, mornings became vibrant again. He came into my office one afternoon with tears in his eyes and said, "Doc, I feel like a man again." That hit me hard, because too many men are walking around feeling like a shadow of themselves when the fix is so often as simple as removing what's been harming them all along. So if you're using a tea, a tincture, or even a supplement with licorice root, and you've noticed that something just isn't working the way it used to, pay attention. It may not be your age. It may be that silent testosterone killer hiding in your morning cup. And here's the kicker. While licorice quietly breaks down your masculine edge, another herb is doing the same thing in a completely different way. It doesn't touch your hormones directly, but it interferes with your brain's pleasure signals, flattening your emotional connection and draining your ability to feel good at all. Most men think this herb helps with mood, but for older men it often does the opposite. Let's talk about it next, because you need to know what it is before it quietly rewires your desire without you even realizing. 2 St. John's wort, the nerve number. St. John's wort a few years ago, a man named Dennis came to see me, 71 years old, quiet, polite, well-dressed. He had a steady handshake and a sadness behind his eyes. He told me, "Doc, I don't feel depressed exactly, I just don't feel anything." He went on to explain how he had lost interest in the little things food had no taste, didn't move him, and the most painful part, his wife's touch no longer stirred anything inside. "I love her," he said, "but it's like something between us faded and I can't get it back." As a physician, I've heard many stories like Dennis's, and too often the culprit is hiding in plain sight inside a bottle that claims to help. In his case, it was St. John's wort. Now let me be clear, St. John's wort has its place for some people in small doses under the right conditions. It can support mood, but for older men, especially those already navigating shifting hormones, lower circulation, and changes in emotional sensitivity, it can quietly do the opposite of what you hoped for. St. John's wort interferes with the very brain chemicals that make us feel connected, dopamine and serotonin. These are the neurochemicals that drive pleasure, satisfaction, arousal, and joy. And when they become imbalanced, you don't just feel flat, you become disconnected from yourself, from the people you love, from the spark that makes life feel full worse. Still, this herb interacts with many common medications, blood pressure pills, antidepressants, even blood thinners. And in aging bodies, those interactions can compound into a cocktail of confusion, fatigue, and loss of emotional clarity. Dennis had been taking a St. John's wort supplement he bought over the counter. He wasn't on any prescription medication, so he assumed it was safe, but it wasn't helping. It was numbing him after we removed it and introduced a gentle, natural alternative to support both mood and libido. Something changed gradually. His voice got stronger, his posture straightened. One day he smiled, really smiled, and said, "I feel awake again." That's when I knew we were on the right path. You see, men don't always need a flood of chemicals or a flashy solution. Sometimes we just need to stop pushing down the signals our bodies are trying to send us. St. John's wort, for all its reputation, is one of those herbs that sounds harmless, but in the wrong body at the wrong time can rob you of the very thing you're trying to restore. So if you've been feeling flat distant or strangely unresponsive, and you're taking something for mood that includes St. John's wort, I urge you to reconsider. The mind and body are meant to feel, to be alive, alert, connected. Don't let this herb take that away from you. Because while St. John's wort numbs your nervous system, the next herb on our list affects something even more essential, your blood flow. And it's probably sitting in your pantry right now, wrapped in a reputation for being fresh, soothing, and good for digestion. But for older men, it's doing the exact opposite. You'll want to hear this 3 peppermint the cool that kills peppermint flow years ago. I treated a man named Harold. He was 73, widowed but hopeful. He'd recently met someone new, and for the first time in years, he was smiling again. But then came the confession. He said, "Doc, I want to feel close again, but something's missing. It's like my body forgot how to respond." He wasn't embarrassed, just deeply frustrated. He'd always taken care of himself. Walked every morning, ate clean, meditated. So what was holding him back when I reviewed his habits? One detail caught my attention. Harold drank peppermint tea every night. It helps me wind down. He told me, I've done it for years. That may sound innocent, refreshing even. But for a man over 60, peppermint might be doing far more harm than good. Here's why peppermint has a cooling, relaxing effect on the body, which is why people use it for digestion and stress. But underneath that calm is a quiet truth. Peppermint reduces testosterone, lowers nitric oxide levels, and constricts blood vessels, especially the tiny ones responsible for circulation in your pelvic region. In other words, while peppermint feels soothing on the surface, it's tightening the very blood vessels you need to stay alive in the bedroom, and worse, it reduces the production of nitric oxide, the molecule your body depends on to open those blood vessels in the first place. This matters more than most men realize because as we age, blood flow is everything without it. It doesn't matter how much you want connection. Your body simply won't respond. You may still feel love, still have desire, but your physical ability to act on it fades. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because something as simple as an evening habit is shutting the door on the very system. You need to feel like a man Harold had no idea, and most men don't. We think of peppermint as gentle comforting, but in an aging male body it's a circulation killer disguised as a wellness ritual when Harold stopped drinking peppermint tea and switched to a more circulation-friendly herb. Things changed. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly his body began to respond again. He came in one day a little flushed with a smirk on his face. Let's just say he told me things are flowing better at home. That's when I knew we were heading in the right direction. You see, it's not always the big things. Sometimes it's these quiet daily habits that do the most damage over time. Peppermint may seem harmless, but if you're over 60 and struggling with intimacy, you need to ask, is this cooling herb actually freezing your fire? Because the next herb on this list takes it a step further. It's in your food, your teas, even your supplements. And it's been celebrated for generations. But what most men don't know is that it mimics estrogen inside the body. And once that happens, your testosterone, your circulation, and even your sense of identity begin to fade. This one surprises almost everyone. Let's talk about it. 4 Sage, the estrogen elevator. Sage, it was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when Alan, aged 69, came to see me. He was a retired pilot, disciplined, thoughtful. The kind of man who always took care of his body, but lately he said things felt off. He couldn't quite describe it at first. I'm not tired, he said, but I feel softer, slower, like the edge is gone. His energy wasn't the same. His strength was fading and his desire, once vibrant, had turned to indifference. I listened closely. We reviewed his routine. Nothing obvious stood out until he mentioned his latest wellness habit. He'd started drinking sage tea every night. It's supposed to be good for inflammation, he said, and I read somewhere it helps with memory sage. That was it. Sage isn't inherently bad. It has a long history in natural medicine, especially for digestion and female hormone support, but that's exactly the issue for older men. Sage doesn't support, it interferes. You see, sage contains compounds called phytoestrogens, plant-based substances that mimic the effects of estrogen in the body. Now that might be helpful for women going through menopause, but for men over 60, it can be deeply disruptive. Estrogen and testosterone are meant to exist in balance, but after 60, testosterone naturally declines, and estrogen, when introduced through diet or herbs like sage, can tip that balance even further. What happens? Then you begin to feel sluggish, softer in the middle, less interested in intimacy, less decisive, less driven. It doesn't just affect your body, it affects your spirit. Alan had no idea that his nightly cup of sage was quietly pushing his hormones in the wrong direction, and this isn't rare. I see it in men all the time doing all the right things on the surface. but unknowingly adding small habits that pull them further from the strength, clarity, and confidence they're seeking to reclaim. We removed the sage, that was step one, but more importantly, we focused on rebuilding the foundation, supporting his testosterone, restoring circulation, and reigniting that internal drive that had started to fade weeks later. Alan came in wearing a button-down shirt tucked into jeans, a small glint in his eye that hadn't been there before. I didn't realise how much I'd lost. He told me, until it started to come back, that's the truth. Most men don't hear. You don't need to accept decline as your new normal, but you do need to stop unknowingly feeding the very patterns that are making you weaker. Sage might look harmless in a tea bag or seasoning jar, but if you're over 60 and fighting to hold on to your masculinity, clarity, or connection, it's not helping. It's elevating estrogen, suppressing what makes you feel like a man, and slowly dulling your edge. But here's the good news for every harmful herb we've discussed. There's a powerful, natural alternative rooted in science, backed by history and trusted in my own clinical practice. These herbs don't just avoid harm, they actively restore. They support blood flow, balance hormones, and help men feel present, connected, and alive again. Let's take a closer look at the 4 herbs your body has been waiting for, because this is where the real healing begins. 1. Ginseng. The blood flow ignition key. Ginseng when I first met Thomas. He was 72 years old and looked like he had given up. He sat in my office, shoulders slouched, voice low, eyes tired. "Doc," he said quietly, "I miss feeling like a man, not just in the bedroom, everywhere. I just feel faded." That word stuck with me, faded. He wasn't just talking about performance. He was talking about presence, about the strength he used to carry with him when he walked into a room, when he held his wife's hand, when he woke up each morning with a sense of purpose. I see that often men who've spent decades providing, pushing through, taking care of everyone else, and then one day the spark starts to dim. The blood doesn't move like it used to. The mornings get quiet and the fire that once lived in their chest feels like a memory. That's when I bring up ginseng. This isn't just an ancient herb, it's a lifeline, especially for men over 60. Ginseng. Particularly, Korean red ginseng has been used for centuries to restore male vitality. But what many don't realise is that its real power lies in what it does for your blood vessels. It helps your body produce more nitric oxide, a molecule essential for opening up blood flow, especially to the areas that define intimacy and connection. When I started Thomas on a clinical grade Korean red ginseng extract, it wasn't a miracle overnight, but something remarkable happened after 2 weeks. He called and said, "I'm standing taller." I knew exactly what he meant. Not just physically, emotionally. His confidence was returning, his circulation was improving, his mind was waking up alongside his body. By week 4, he walked into my office wearing a new jacket, brighter eyes, and said, "My wife told me she sees the man she married again." That's what ginseng does. It's not just about stronger blood flow, it's about restoring the feeling of being alive in your own body. It clears the fog. It brings warmth back into places that had gone cold. It gives you the chance to reconnect not only with your partner, but with yourself. But there's a key point here. Not all ginseng is created equal. The cheap stuff you find at a gas station or tucked into a multivitamin won't do the job. You need a properly standardized extract, ideally with at least 5% ginsenosides, taken daily consistently. It doesn't just help you perform better, it helps you feel better, more awake, more grounded, more like you. So if you felt distant, dull, or uncertain in your body, this may be your ignition key, the first real step toward reclaiming not just function, but confidence, and as powerful as ginseng is for starting the engine. There's another herb that keeps the blood pumping long after the key is turned. It works on the same enzyme that many blue pills target, but does it naturally, gently, and with long-term benefits that go far beyond the bedroom. You'll want to hear about this one. Let's talk about it next too. Horny goat, the natural PDE5 blocker. Horny goat weed. I'll never forget Glenn. He was 74, a retired high school football coach, tough as nails on the outside. But when he sat in my office, he spoke with a kind of quiet honesty that hit me hard. "Doc," he said, "I'm not trying to be 25 again. I just want to feel close to my wife without worrying if my body will betray me." His voice cracked slightly on that last part. You could tell this wasn't about ego or performance. It was about connection. The simple, sacred connection that comes from being able to hold your partner with presence and confidence. Glenn had tried the blue pills. He said they worked sometimes, but they made his heart race, gave him headaches and made everything feel mechanical. "It's like flipping a switch," he said, "but the warmth, the real feeling it's missing." That's when I introduced him to Horny Goat. Now don't let the name fool you. I know it sounds like something you'd see on a gas station shelf next to questionable energy drinks. But this herb, when used properly, is one of nature's most powerful tools for restoring blood flow, especially for men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. Its real name is epimedium, and its magic comes from a compound called icaran. This compound works by gently blocking the same enzyme that Viagra targets, PDE5, but it does it gradually, naturally, and without the side effects. What that means for you is this improved blood flow, stronger responsiveness, and a return to that sense of control in your body. Not artificial, not forced, just you working the way you're meant to. When Glenn started taking a standardized horny goat extract, about 500 milligrams a day with 10% icaran, I told him to give it time. That's how nature works. No fireworks, no quick fixes, just steady, honest healing. About 5 weeks in, Glenn came back for a follow-up. He didn't say much at first, just sat down, took a breath and smiled. Then he said, "It's not just that things are working again, it's how I feel. I feel like me again." That's what makes horny goat weed so remarkable. It's not just about helping you perform, it's about restoring a rhythm between your mind, your body and your heart. It even lowers cortisol, your body's stress hormone, which for so many men is the hidden killer of desire. When stress drops and blood starts flowing again, something inside begins to return. Confidence, warmth, the feeling of being fully present with the person you love. And Glenn, he didn't just save his intimacy, he saved his marriage, because when he felt better about himself, everything changed. His energy, his connection, the way he walked, the way he spoke. Horny goat weed didn't turn him into someone new, it gave him himself back. But circulation is only part of the story, because even if the blood is flowing, it won't reach the most important areas if your micro vessels, the tiniest capillaries, are clogged or shrinking. That's where the next herb comes in. Most men think it's just for memory, but its real gift is something far more intimate. Let's go there. Next 3. Gino biloba, the microerculation, ginkgo biloba, miracle. There's a moment I'll never forget. A man named Frank, 70 years old, retired Marine, proud father of 4, sat across from me with a puzzled look in his eyes. He wasn't there for performance issues. Not exactly. I feel numb. He said, not just down there, everywhere, like the volume's been turned down on life. He wasn't sad, he wasn't sick, but he knew something wasn't right. His energy was flat. His connection to the world around him felt dulled, like someone had quietly unplugged the cord. I asked about his heart. His labs, his lifestyle, all looked decent on paper. But when I examined deeper, one thing stood out: poor microerculation. Not the big arteries, but the tiny vessels, the capillaries that feed sensation, oxygen and warmth to the most sensitive parts of a man's body. When those begin to narrow or clog with age, you don't just lose blood flow, you lose feeling emotionally, physically, intimately. That's where Gokko Aloba comes in. Most men have heard of it for memory, for focus. But what they don't realise is that its true power lies in what it does for the smallest blood vessels in your body. GKO acts like a natural blood thinner. opening up microcs that often go ignored in modern medicine. It supports something we call microirculation, the delivery of blood to places that matter more than most men realise. After starting Frank on a clinical dose, 120 milliliters twice a day, things didn't change immediately, but within 4 weeks his clarity returned within Seth. Something deeper shifted. He told me, "Doc, I feel sensation again, my hands, my legs, even in the bedroom. I didn't know I'd lost it until it came back." And that right there, that's the magic of restoring blood flow where it matters most. You start feeling again, you start engaging again, not in some overhyped way, but in a natural, steady, grounded way that lets you reclaim the parts of yourself you thought were gone for good. Ginkgo also helps oxygen reach your tissues, reduces inflammation in aging vessels, and gently supports the kind of erectile function that builds over time. Not through sudden spikes. It doesn't force your body to respond. It simply makes it possible again. That's the difference. That's what men over 60 need more than anything. Not artificial performance, but authentic presence. When Frank returned to my office, he looked different. Not younger, but more alive. His wife even sent a thank you note. Not for a prescription, but for helping him come back to life in a way she hadn't seen in years. And that's the quiet power of GKO. Not flashy, not instant, but deep, lasting, and real. But here's the final piece of the puzzle, because even if you restore circulation and sensitivity, if your hormones aren't firing, you're still only halfway there. The next herb doesn't just support testosterone, it awakens it. It triggers a forgotten signal in your body that tells your testicles, "We're not done yet." And for men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, this one change can rewrite everything. Let's take a look. 4 Tribulus terrestris, the Tribulus terrestris hormone reawakener. I remember the first time I met Richard. He was 74, tall, quiet, and wore a wristwatch that looked older than some of my staff. He came into my office with the slow steps of a man carrying more than just years. He was carrying the weight of uncertainty. He had lost his wife to cancer 5 years earlier and had just started seeing someone new. "She makes me laugh again," he told me, "but I'm scared I can't be the man she needs." He wasn't talking about strength or wealth or companionship. He was talking about desire, identity, the deep sense of still being a man. Richard's story isn't rare for many men. The loss of testosterone after 60 isn't just a lab number, it's a slow erasure of who they once were. The fire dims, the muscles soften, motivation fades, and that quiet voice starts whispering, "Maybe those days are over." That's when I introduced him to Tribulus terrestris. Now, Tribulus isn't a steroid, it doesn't flood your system with synthetic hormones. What it does is something far more intelligent. It gently signals the pituitary gland, which then tells your body to start producing its own testosterone again. Not in a spike, not in a jolt, but in a steady natural rhythm that brings you back to your 20 biological centre. I started Richard on 500 mg a day, standardised to 45% saponins. For the first couple weeks, he felt no different, but I told him, "Trust the process." Then, in the 5th week, he showed up at my office early, sat down with a calm energy I hadn't seen before, and said, "It's working. I didn't expect fireworks, but I wake up and I feel like me again." That's the power of restoring testosterone from within. It's not about performance, it's about presence. Tribulus doesn't just help bring back libido. It sharpens your focus, lifts your mood, builds. Lean muscle restores vascular tone. And for men who've been stuck in that limbo between aging and giving up, it offers something far more powerful than any pill. Hope you see, testosterone isn't just about intimacy, it's about direction. When it's low, everything feels slower, heavier. But when it rises naturally, gradually, you start seeing your reflection differently. You walk taller, speak clearer. You stop fading and start re-entering your life. Richard is still with his partner today, and he tells me often, "It wasn't just about getting closer to her, it was about finding myself again." That's what I want every man to know. You are not done. Your body is not finished. It's simply waiting for the right message, the right support, the right moment to reignite. And now that you've heard the 4 herbs I trust most to restore strength, balance, and blood flow in men over 60, there's one final message I want to leave you with because conclusion, you're not done. You're just getting started. I've spent over 3 decades sitting across from men, just like you. Men who've lived full lives, carried heavy responsibilities, and shown strength in more ways than the world ever gives them credit for. And yet somewhere around 60 or 70, many of them arrive at the same quiet question. Is this? It is the best part of me already behind me. I'm here to tell you, with all the honesty and experience I have, that it's not even close. What we've covered today may seem simple on the surface, 4 herbs to avoid, 4 herbs to embrace. But underneath that, there's a deeper truth. Most men are not losing their vitality because of age alone. They're losing it because no one told them how the wrong daily habits, especially the wrong herbs, can quietly drain the life out of them. Licorice root, St. John's wort peppermint, and sage may seem harmless, even healthy, but in an aging male body, they can shut down blood flow, suppress testosterone, numb sensation, and strip away the very essence of who you are. But here's the beauty of nature. It doesn't just take away, it gives back. If you know where to look, that's why I shared the 4 herbs I trust in my own clinical practice. Ginseng, the ignition key for circulation and clarity. Horny goatweed, the natural flow restorer that works with your body, not against it. Gino alloba, the miracle worker, for microirculation and sensitivity, and Tribulus terrestris, the hormone reawakener that reminds your body what it means to be strong, present, and alive. These aren't magic pills, they're tools. Tools to help you restore what time has dulled, not just in function, but in identity. Because when your blood flows again, when your hormones return to balance, when sensation, desire, and energy begin to stir, everything shifts. You begin to speak differently, breathe differently, love differently. You reclaim your place in the world, not as a man who's fading, but as one who's rising again with wisdom, depth, and strength. I've watched men in their 60s find new love, men in their 70s take back their health, men in their 80s look into their partner's eyes and feel something they thought was long gone. Not because they gave up, but because they didn't, and you don't have to. Either. You're not broken, you're not past your prime, you're simply at a new chapter. And now you have the knowledge, the tools, and the power to write the next part with purpose and pride. So take this as a sign, a turning point, a gentle nudge from someone who believes in you more than you may believe in yourself right now. Your body is still speaking. Your strength is still there. And your story isn't over. You're not done. You're just getting started. If this message spoke to you, even just one part of it, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button so YouTube knows this kind of real, honest health advice matters. Share this video with a friend, a brother, or someone in your life who might be struggling silently. You never know whose life you might help change with a simple click. I'd love to hear from you too. Leave a comment below. Tell me what resonated most, what questions you still have, or even just type, "I'm not done." If you're ready to reclaim your strength, I read every single one. And if you found real value in what you heard today and want to support the creation of more videos like this, consider making a small donation through the link below. It helps keep this channel alive and free for the men who need it most. Your story matters, your health matters, and you're not alone. Thank you for watching and for choosing to believe in yourself again.